chat, and you'll be emailed a recording of this presentation as well as Realty Collective's Buying into Brooklyn ebook that we've written that is very comprehensive. I'm going to just say it now that this class is going to give us an overview of the process, but we've written a book and it's much more comprehensive. We're not going to be able to go over every single possible thing that can happen in a deal in 45 minutes with 15 minutes of questions. But we will have the answers to any of your questions and resources available to you through our ebook and through other resources and talking to us because you can reach out to us afterwards and talk to any of us for free. Um, we're going to put all of our, also besides the ebook, we're going to share a video of this on YouTube and Spotify, and you'll be able to share with anybody else in your household that's a decision maker that wasn't able to join. And we'll put our contact information there as well so that you can, reach out to us privately in case you don't want to ask a question in front of everybody else. Realty Collective does this thing called the Women Owned Business blog series. So if you have a Brooklyn-based company that is women owned that you want to give a shout out to, we have great SEO. It also gets featured in our newsletter to our 30,000 member list that we've acquired over the years because we've been in business now 21 years this summer. And I think those are my housekeeping items. And I did that so quickly. It's almost 5:05, and then we'll just get started. And so I'm Victoria Alexander. I'm the founder of Realty Collective, a stereotype defying real estate company that I started 20 years ago. And these are my partners in crime, Michael Motion and June Richardson. Michael was a lawyer for one of the properties I've bought over the years. I feel like 10, more than 10 years ago, that breaks
All
supposed
right.
to be, which is wild. He took a little break, but came back. And June, we've been working with for a long time as well, and a great team. Do you guys want to do a little intro?
All right, June, take it first.
Okay. Can you hear me all right, everyone?
Yes.
Okay, good. My name is June Richardson, and I am the Senior Vice President at Garthill Financial. I'm a loan officer. I've been doing this for many, many, many years. And the best thing that I would like to say about what I do is basically I help you fulfill your dream. I listen, actually listen to what you have to say, and then put together a plan so that you can achieve that. And it's a partnership that we do. And I've been doing it for a long time, and nothing makes me happier than a client who actually realizes their dream.
Thanks, June. Okay, Michael, you're up.
Yeah, thank you, Victoria, and thank you, June. Victoria, I love these buying into Brooklyn seminars. I love when we do them. I have been a real estate lawyer in New York since the late 90s. I kind of cut my teeth on Manhattan exploding, real estate wise, and then Brooklyn catching fire with in the 2000s, the 2010s. I bought and sold in Williamsburg two, three times. So I know the anxiety that you guys are feeling at this point. The buying process is its own unique, scary, terrifying endeavor. And I think I enjoy working with first-time buyers more than anything else. I have an office in Midtown. I'm solo practitioner, so I don't have a paralegal. I don't have an associate. I take a lot of pride in working with my clients hand in hand, brain in brain to like tackle these very complicated subjects and processes. And there are some states, there's there are some states where this is fairly easy. You get a title report and the title company does everything. New York is the opposite of that. New York is a complicated process. And when we meet and you don't know anything and you're green to when at the end of the process you know everything and you can speak the language is one of the great, joys that I find in my job. So I look forward to this like seminar. Vic, thanks for inviting me, and I look forward to, your questions at the end, and I look forward to to the to this game that we're all about to like get deep on.
Okay, I agree with everything you said, Michael. So I also love working with first-time home buyers, and that's why we've developed this class and these resources. It just isn't what you're going to get learned from here today. It's all the resources we're going to send after you because this is a value add. You know, it's important. You guys, I know most of you are going to go on Zillow and end up clicking a bunch of buttons, and a broker is going to call you, and you know that's how you could possibly get a real estate agent. And that is exactly how you shouldn't get a real estate agent. And that's why we have this class, because you should, it is a job. And that's why June and Michael are here. You need these three people to go through this process and you want to interview them and feel comfortable with your decision. But it should be a decision. It shouldn't be some algorithm or AI chatbot pushing somebody that's paid to get in front of you to be matched with you. And so that is my job, is to be your matchmaker, your sounding board, your guide, you know, to help you through this process. Just like Michael, you're going to deal with me. I'm not going to pass you off to a team member unless you decide to sell your, you know, $5 million townhouse. Then maybe I'll ask somebody to come help me do that, because it is a team effort to make sure that your needs and the service that you need to have through this process is provided to. And so, but I love doing that. So that's what I do. And I'm going to I kicked it up to you guys and then just want to tell you, I already went over some of this stuff. God, I'm so ahead of some of my notes. These are advisors, and relationship and personality type are important. And so that's why, you know, I might not be the right person for you, but I'm going to give you the tools and resources today to help figure out who should be. But I'm going to say that working with Michael and June and myself as a team has been really positive experience for our other clients. So feel free to ask questions. Like I said, put them down in the chat. And it's designed to outline the buying process. We're not going to be able to go over every single step, but we're going to give you a high level understanding of what this is like. And so you can feel more confident when you're ready to take the next step. And that might be tomorrow, and that might be in a year or even 2 or 3 years, because it's better to educate yourself and understand how the process is going to go so you can make the right decisions throughout the way. And that's what we're hopefully going to be able to provide you with today, because we want you to feel empowered and educated.
And Vic, I want to add, like, I remember that Victoria and I, not you, June, you were not part of the team back then, but like back in, 2011, 2012, I think even 2013, Victoria and I were doing these seminars at Brooklyn Brewery live, and we had each time, over 200 people who paid for this seminar and got a beer. They got a beer and a little notebook, and because there was such a ferocious interest in Brooklyn, and everyone was stressed out and tense about how
Yeah.
to do it, right? And I kind of feel like maybe we're at another kind of point like that. So this is another maybe inflection point where people are nervous, they want to be a part of Brooklyn. And rather than being a Brooklyn brewery, we can do this a lot easier and just be online. So
It's
just,
not as cool or as fun, though, that's for sure. I would rather be drinking a beer right now instead of having to be on Zoom. I'm
yep,
sure we're all over Zoom,
yep,
for sure. So, what I like to tell people now, and I agree with you, I think that people, it's really nerve-wracking, especially because everything else in the world feels really out of our control. And I think this is a really great way to feel empowered and in control of something, is by buying something, because yeah, just it's a crazy, crazy time. And I think a lot of buyers got out of the market last year because of the instability. And now that instability is just a norm, that people are coming back in. And thankfully, interest rates are coming down.
yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I always say people there, we have something called the rent to buy matrix that the New York Times developed, and Danny's going to put a link in the chat for you to figure out if buying makes sense for you. Because for some people, if you are in a rent controlled or rent stabilized apartment, buying might not make sense if your lifetime. Also, if you're going to leave New York in the next 2 to 3 years, might not make sense. We usually say 5 years is the break even for horizon for you to, next slide, sorry, Danny, for you to make sure that a property makes sense. But now is a great time because we all still know this has not changed. The rent is too damn high, right? Buying and renting keeps getting closer and closer. It's just about how you get outside of that, the rental cycle and actually into something. And you're going to want to buy something that is probably your dream apartment, but in New York City, you might have to start with, your starter apartment. But this, you get to do things like have your own design. You get to paint your walls crazy colors because your landlord is never going to let you do that. You get long-term investment and you get to build equity. I'm going to brag that I bought my house that I'm living in now 16 years ago. I'm trying to think. And when I bought that other apartment with you, Michael, 10, right? And so 16 years ago, I did everything I could to buy something. Oh, yeah. Keep going. Next slide, Danny. Sorry. Which I had to borrow some money from my parents. I had to hawk an old engagement ring. I had gotten in a car accident, so I took a check from like a little bit of money from there. But it just like took everything possible to make it happen. And thank God I did it because I think the longer people wait, they're like, oh, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. Like I probably definitely wasn't ready, but it had to happen because like we were at a pivotal time where the market was changing and that, you needed to get all this crazy stuff. They changed the mortgage products at the time. I couldn't do the 10% down. I had to switch mortgage products. But my mortgage is less than most people pay in rent right now because, and that's just going to continue to happen, right? So get in now because everything's just going to continue to go up in New York. Everybody's like tries to time the market. Where's the window? You just, if you can buy something and you plan on staying in New York City, figure out how to do it. And okay. And then so the first thing you do is you're going to assemble your team. And once you have a list of people that you've talked to, and some people you might need besides that are your contractor, your architect, your inspector, but you really need three people. You need an attorney, so that's Michael. You need a mortgage professional, that's June, and you need a real estate broker, and that's me. And these are the three people that are going to guide you through this process. And everybody else, we'll give you referrals for. And then as soon as you figure out, okay, I'm going to buy something, you're going to call June and you're going to go through the finances and you're going to figure out what your buying power is and how much, the bank is going to give you. So do not go to Zillow. Do not go on Street Easy. Do not start looking at things until you figure out if you can actually buy something. And what those finances look like, and then making a pathway to get there. Because maybe you're like, oh, I have $100,000. I need $120,000 because I also need closing costs. How can you figure out how to get to the threshold where you're going to be able to get something for your money? So I'm going to let June talk about financing.
Okay, thank you, Victoria. And something I didn't say, but I would agree with both Michael and Victoria. I really do love working with first-time home buyers, and I do love sharing real information because there's so much crap. There's no other way to put it out there in terms of what the real process is like. And I really like arming you with the information that you need. So let's just start off by saying, what is a pre-approval? A pre-approval means, for me, not necessarily for everyone, but it means that I've reviewed your financials. I've pulled a credit report and we've had at least one or two conversations about what you need, what you want, and then we come together and determine whether or not you can actually afford what it is that you're looking for. What are the guardrails? So I guess that's the best way to put it is the pre-approval is your guardrail. It tells you this is the maximum that you can afford, stay within this framework. And that is a partnership that we do through conversation and through the review of your financials. Part of that process involves pulling your credit report. And there are a lot of discussions about soft pulls and hard pulls, and I don't want to get down in the weeds, but basically, what your credit score is designed to do is to tell the lender that you're going to pay them back, right? Because at the end of the day, what do lenders want to know? Are you going to pay me back? That is the bottom line, and that is part of the process of what we go through together. Once we've gone through that process and then you're out looking, we can fine tune a lot of things along the way, looking at the building, if you're going to buy in a co-op or a condo, making sure that it's solid. But the foundation is always a conversation with me and also putting the guardrails in place so that when you go and make an offer, you are confident that based on your financial, you'll be able to get a mortgage and close.
Yeah. And I think that's incredibly important too for people that are self-employed or own their own business, really understanding what the bank looks at. So, because in your mind, they put these little calculators on Street Easy and all these other platforms. You can't count on that to feel like confident that you'll be able to, afford what you're looking at. You really need someone to look at everything and say, okay, the bank is going to say this line items for this and this is like that. And you need to have this to make it happen if you want to have this purchase price. And that's why it's really important you have somebody that's seasoned. I'm going to tell you this. I'm supposed to tell you this at a different point of the conversation, but you know, don't hire your friend that just got their real estate license or just getting into selling mortgages or just started practicing law. Your finances and your purchasing experience are too valuable to risk it all for that because you want people that are seasoned experts that have industry contacts and that can do this like the back of their hand. This is a walk in the park. They deal with stuff like this for the, 10, 20 years. Michael was doing this before I was out of high school. He just told me.
Yeah, and I beat Michael. I mean, I was doing it way before that. So
I know.
Mhm.
That's amazing to me.
yeah, I do
It
want to.
just goes by like that.
I know. I that is something, Victoria, that you said that I didn't mention, and that is I have a wealth of information, and it's not just a one path fits all.
Mhm.
You really need to trust me with your information. There's conventional financing, there's financing that is put together for investors, for self-employed people, for people who have a lot of money in the bank but don't show a lot of income. There's so much that's available, so I wouldn't count yourself out. And that's part of what I do. I figure out what path is the path for you. There's not just one fit all path.
Yeah. And I think that that's really important for people because they feel that's why I'm saying don't use those calculators. It's not, yeah, it's not a package deal from there. You really need to understand your specific financial situation, especially if you have different variables like, working from yourself or owning your own business, or get weird bonuses. Like it's just, you want to get a handle on it and understand. And maybe you're not there yet. And June will be a great person to say, hey, you know what? This is something I'm serious about. I need a year or two to get there. What do I need to do so I look good for a bank? Because sometimes people just left their full-time job and are started to their own company, and we don't want, that's awesome, but we need to show 2 years of solid income. And if you start off the bat by changing your taxes so that you have to pay as little taxes as possible, but show you make no money, you're not going to be able to buy something. So that's why having rapport and relationship with somebody to help you make these decisions on how to put the best version of you forward to the bank is important. And June is really great at that. So
Hey,
go ahead.
June, do you also, with these new buyers, do you like deal with their credit score and try to give them guidance with that too?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, if there is something on the credit report that I see that is hurting them, I'll certainly tell them. It depends on the timeline that we're working with, actually, Michael, if it's something that can be fixed within a short period of time, then that's something that I would point out. If it's something that's going to take some more time, I have people that I work with that help with credit repair, and that will give us like a real timeline of what it would take. But yes, I mean, I've worked with people who started out with scores in the low sixes, and within a year, they were in the 700s and were able to buy. So it really depends on the circumstance.
And Victoria, do you usually get new buyers who come to you who've already talked to June and already suss all this out? Or do you get these buyers generally and then you say, listen, you got to talk to a June. You need to then come back to me. When do you get these
People
guys?
always call me and think you start with me, which I don't mind at all because I love having those first conversations with people. But really, the first person you should deal with is a mortgage professional to understand your buying power. And I think that a lot of that, then also talking about, if you're interested, like I have someone just talk, a buyer that said, hey, we're going to take a break because they want to buy in a co-op and they're going to be gone out of the country for 6 months next year. And they're like, oh, well, we can't rent it out. I'm like, nope, they're not going to let you rent out your co-op for 6 months in the first 2 years of you owning it. And that's an important conversation that they already talked to a mortgage professional about, but that conversation had to start with me. And then we already started looking at things. And I also think the other important thing about mortgages, especially in New York City, is you cannot use an AI platform. Rocket Mortgage, Quicken Mortgage, you cannot, that is dooming yourself for stress and headaches and ulcers during this process. It just does, especially with co-ops. is not the best bet for you. They might give you, you might save, get a $500 credit, or is not worth it in the long run. You want a real person because these are complicated personal transactions, because there's a co-op attorney, there's a buyer's attorney, there's a seller, there's a bank attorney, and all these people communicate with each other, and they are not going to communicate with an AI thing and a person that's in the middle of Idaho that doesn't even know what a co-op is, because co-ops are very specific to New York City. And I saw just said something like debt to income ratio. That's something we need to talk about, because a co-op's going to look at all of your paperwork and you put in your co-op application. And we want to make sure that June and I are talking to you about what do your finances look like, so that the co-op's going to say yes to you when you get to the interview. And that's what a seller's broker is going to look like for too. They're not going to accept your offer if they don't know that you're going to pass the board. So these are all important conversations. So the financing piece is your first important step towards making sure that you're ready to buy something in New York City. Okay, so you figured out you're ready to buy. Then we start asking you some questions. What's your timing? It might be a year. It might be 2 or 3 weeks. Oh, my lease is going to expire. Well, we're going to have to figure out, if you really only have 30 days, what that really looks like. Will your landlord let you extend? Can you go into temporary housing? What's your plan? You figure out your budget. A lot of people are like, oh, the purchase price, the purchase price. But we all know from co-ops to condos, and especially new construction, that there's taxes, there's maintenance, and these things are going to affect your monthly nut. And you need to know not only what you can afford to buy, but what you can afford to budget as a monthly expense for yourself, and all the curveballs that might come with home ownership. Because maybe you buy a 4-family house and the roof goes, and if you didn't put money in the pot to make sure that you had to cover to fix the roof in the middle of the year, maybe that wasn't the right purchase. And this is stuff we'll talk about. And then if your family, people are, is it just you? Do you have 3 kids and a dog already? What is your family size and what are their needs going to be? If you need to be by a park because you like running all the time and you need to bring the kids there, or like, yeah, same thing with lifestyle. Do you want to be on Court or Smith Street and be able to walk down and go all the restaurants and bars? Or do you want to be in Williamsburg because that's where all your friends are right now? These are things that we talk about. Next slide, Danny. And then we start talking about, okay, I want to be in a co-op building with a doorman. What neighborhoods in Brooklyn actually have co-ops with doormen? Some of the, Prospect Heights, Brooklyn Heights, like the Heights seem to have a lot of doormen still. Do you want to have a gym in your building? Do you want a roof deck? Like, what sort of amenities are important to you? And where can you find buildings that offer those amenities? Because we all know that downtown Brooklyn is nothing like Park Slope, right? You can't live in a cute brownstone and have a brand new state-of-the-art gym in your building. Those things don't align. So we want to make sure we align your expectations with the building type, the typology, the condo co-op, and then also the location. And so unless you're already, and the easiest is if you already love the neighborhood you're in, that's the solution. Oh, I want to be here. But some people need to explore because they can't afford where they're renting right now. And they don't know a lot of other neighborhoods about Brooklyn. So my favorite is to go on the Brooklyn tour and show you all your different options. And then we get to narrow it down. And what I always tell, so a big tip of advice is if you don't know where you want to live and you can't, you'd love to stay in your neighborhood, but you can't afford it, is go online and whatever social media platform you have and say, hey, listen, I'm thinking about moving. Tell me why you love your neighborhood. And then reach out to your friends that have responded and say, can I come on a Sunday? I'm going to come to 1 or 2 open houses. Can you take me to brunch? And can you take me a walk around your neighborhood and tell me why you love it and what you hate about it and see if it aligns with my values and my needs? That's the best way you're going to get your people that you already have relations with and already know that you have shared interests are going to tell you from their perspective, if this will be a good lifestyle choice for you. And I think that's the best way to get to know other neighborhoods from firsthand experience from the people that you already have in your circle of trust, right? So I can tell you it's great. I'm going to tell you about the Red Hook because I live in Red Hook. So it's the best neighborhood, hands down. But, I'm sure not everyone's going to agree with me on that. So it's good
All
to hear
right,
from other
enough
people.
about Red Hook, enough.
I know. I've lived here 21 years, guys. It's really hard not to be a little spokesperson. So, okay, so you're ready. And we are going to now, we talked about all this stuff and we've created like a buying strategy for you and a timeline. Where do you look? So I already told you, you don't go on Zillow or StreetEasy or Redfin or I like Street Easy. That's the most user friendly. We have a back end database. But really, Zillow will mislabel things that are condos as co-ops and co-ops and condos. Make sure you figure out a reputable site like Redfin also. I think those are the worst. What's the other one I hate? Realtor.com also has a lot of misinformation. I would say Street Easy is for New York City, the most liked one, in my opinion. I think, Zillow is just evil. Even though Zillow owns Street Easy, they just haven't ruined it yet. So that's where I think. But again, just reminding everybody when you go on any of these platforms, when you message somebody on there, that is not the person that represents the property. All of these sites are geared toward trying to get your information to sell it to an agent. So they'll start calling you to help try to get you to be their client. And you want to go the opposite way. If it's not me, call your friend that just bought something and ask for their real estate agent and why they liked working with them and call and talk to them. Talk to one or two people and interview them to make sure you like them and you want to work with them. You're going to be talking to all of us a lot. You better like talking to us and you better like the way we communicate and understand it because if there's a breakdown in communication, it's going to be very stressful. And so you want to feel like, oh, I'm a straight shooter. So if you like somebody that like just tells you how it is, that's me. I'm not going to tell you that I'm going to sugarcoat things for you. And I would say the same thing, like Michael's always available in June, and they will walk you through really slowly and making sure you understand every aspect of the contract, of the finances to help you understand what you're signing, and what you're signing up for. And that's from the co-op rules, the house rules, the sublet rules for the co-op, and this to sell it. Because, sometimes you have to pay a transfer fee, right? In a co-op, so you have to understand not only getting in, well, what does it look like to get out when that's ready too? And I think that's important.
Victoria, I'm sorry to
Go
interrupt.
for it, Michael.
Can these buyers work with more than one agent when they're looking to buy something? Can you explain that to these guys?
You want, like I think I said, but you want to call one or two people. You don't want to work with more than one person. And you want to say, I have a list of questions for interviewing all of us that I will share with anybody on here. I think it comes in our guide too. And ask these people the questions, and then you pick one person. You pick one lawyer, you pick one mortgage professional, you pick one agent, but you call and talk to one or two people, and feel good about it. And
But then you sign
don't
an agreement, right? You sign an agreement with them.
you sign an agreement. For me, you can get out. If you don't like me, you can get out of it. I'm like, if it's not working for
Aw.
you, but we sign an agreement and say we're going to work together and we're going to go and we're going to look at property and I'm going to represent you and I have a fiduciary responsibility to you, right? So, and that's the commitment.
Yep.
So, yeah. And you should do the same thing with the lawyer. Oh, Danny, you're going, just pause here. You're a couple slides ahead. Okay, so now I talked about where you're searching, but we have a back-end database. The best place, in my opinion, is Street Easy. If you guys have other things that have solved this problem, but you want one place that puts all the information in one place. And right now in New York City, I think the best platform for that is Street Easy. Okay, so I think you can go to the next slide, Danny. Okay, making an offer and negotiating terms. Oh, I already talked about all of this stuff. We're moving so quickly. I love it. We're already at 5:30. So, Michael, tell me one thing that you think is important about making an offer.
Well, an offer is not binding,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
That's it. That's the thing. So you're not in contract to buy a piece of property in New York until you sign that agreement, the seller signs an agreement, and your 10% deposit is in the seller's attorney's escrow account. Until then, you can walk, your seller can walk, everybody's vulnerable. So I think that's for me, when you're talking, you're thinking about making an offer, right, Vic? I mean, you have you're not bound. And I think
Right.
that's a really it's scary to say to make offers and feel like you're married to that offer, but you're not.
Right. And I always suggest to people when we start first conversation, I said, listen, let's make an offer on something that's just like your B property. It's not your dream home. It's not like, oh my God, I saw it on Street Easy and I have to have it because you want when that property comes up, you want to have the education and the confidence to from the experience that it's not scary. Because it is, I feel like, especially for first time home, the first offer, it's always so hard when, we go out the first day and they fall in love with the first property and they have no, you know, understanding because they haven't done it before what this is supposed to feel like. And that's why it's so nerve-wracking. So I always say, okay, let's find something. Let's get all your paperwork together. Let's get your cover letter together. Let's make sure everything's in order. So when the dream apartment comes up, you're ready and you can pull the trigger in the way that needs to be pulled and not lose out on the place that you love. And I think that really, really helps people, get there. And especially, hey, we're just going to put an offer and listen, there's going to be 5 other offers. You're definitely not getting this place. So it depends on the place though, too, Sometimes it's like, oh, there's a difference when you're seeing something that just got listed and the first open house and it's a line to get in. I know that's happening with rentals these days too, versus the place that's been sitting on the market for 3 months also. So, there is a art form to doing both and
Yeah.
value in doing both. I think a lot of people are like, it's been on the market 3 months, there's something wrong with it. No, they probably just had a bad broker and they overpriced it out of the gate, or the seller, wasn't listening to their broker and overpriced it. And or they had an offer and it fell apart, and that can just, put time on the clock. So and anything else that, when you're making an offer, like what terms should be in there, Michael?
Well, I mean, the most important term are these contingencies, right, Vic? I mean,
Mhm.
that's
Yeah.
really, so you're not only just when you make an offer, and this is critical, you're not just giving your agent a number and you're saying, I want to bid $800,000 and that's it. That's not how it's done. I mean, you're really also baking into the financing component. So your seller will really want to understand how you're affording this place, especially if you are buying a co-op, because you need to pass the board. That is a contingency. If you do not pass the board, you get your 10% deposit back. Same thing with a financing contingency. If you if you are getting an 80% loan and you don't get that loan, the bank will not lend to you, then you get your 10% back and you walk from the deal unscathed. If you don't say anything, if you don't make your contingencies clear, then you're giving the impression that you don't really care about your financing or you don't even have financing. You're basically making what's called all cash offers. Sellers love all cash offers for obvious reasons, but that might surprise you that you don't have a contingency to fall back on. So very critical. Understand not only the price, but understand what you're borrowing and make it clear, unless you don't care because you have so much money, make it clear that this deal is contingent upon you getting the financing. So I think that there are other contingencies out there that we can talk about, but for me, in your offer, that is, that's critical.
I would also want to add something that I think we spoke about once before, and that is the criteria for a lender approving you and the criteria for a co-op a board approving you are two different animals altogether.
Yeah.
And it's very possible that you could be approved for financing and still not make the cut for the co-op board, which is why you really need a team around you so that you everyone looks at all of the different pieces of the puzzle before you get too far down the road.
Yeah, and I think that's an important part too of why, when we're putting in an offer for a co-op, a lot of the brokers for the sell side will want to see a financial disclosure. And it's just a little bit besides just a standard form with some numbers, it really gets into some details like how much is in your 401k, how much is here and there. And they want to know because that's what the board's going to want to know. And so they want a high level version of what you're submitting to the board to say, oh, you know what? You're carrying a lot of student debt and you're carrying a lot of credit card debt. You're not going to reach the debt to income ratio requirements for this building. And or, a lot of people want to put 10% down. Most co-ops require 20% down. There's a small number, not in Manhattan, but a lot more in Brooklyn that you can put 10 or 15% down. But I would say the majority of co-ops want 20% down. And I think, we didn't talk about it, but some of the other things, you can't really do an FHA loan in a co-op. generally. And these are things that to figure it out. Like I definitely did. I said, I pulled all the stops out and I take risks, and it was just me, at the time. But I pulled out all the stops to make my loan happen, and I did 10% down, and I had PMI, but I got rid of that PMI in like the first 4 years because I paid down my mortgage and the appreciation went up. So PMI is primary mortgage insurance, and that's what the bank makes you have. So you're paying a little bit extra every month in insurance because they're taking a gamble on you if you're putting less than 20% down. But something to talk to June about, and what the options are, because you do need the building to get approved. So some of the terms that I like to do, make sure that we're covering is making sure we get an inspection on the property, no matter what it is, a co-op or condo, we get an inspection, or a 1 to 4 family house, that where it's also your offer is contingent on financing. And then, making sure that you have an attorney and your more pre-approval and all that set up so that when we're putting in the offer, and then if we do find something in the inspection that we can negotiate that, right? Okay, they didn't represent or they didn't know because, if they tell you about it, like, hey, we know that the dishwasher is broken and we're selling it to you as the apartment is as is, and we're disclosing that, and they put it in the listing. But then we do an inspection, and not only is the dishwasher broken, but also there's a leak in the bedroom closet, and that's going to be a gazillion dollars to fix. Will they fix it? Or will you say take a credit? Or is it now showing you a bunch of other issues? Because the leak is just a sign that there's a bigger issue going on. And you're saying, oh, you know what? This is now getting really scary. And I don't want to buy $100,000, $200,000 worth of construction work that I have to do. I'll let somebody else who has more capacity to deal with fixed problems buy this apartment, and I'll move on to something that's brand new and has no problems because I'm a turnkey kind of person, and that's just who you are. Because you also have to understand, hey, this is my comfort level and this isn't. Me, I'm like, oh, that's a problem. Okay, I want a discount. I'll fix your problem. Just take all the money off. That's how I think. But that's not for everybody, right? Some people aren't cut out to deal with real messes. And in a condo, if you have a problem, you have to work with the other condo members sometimes if it's a throughout the building problem to resolve it. And some people don't have the capacity to work with their neighbors, especially people they don't know, and join a group of people that there. So we have to talk through all these things and make sure like this is the path you want to go on and you're comfortable with those decisions. So those are some of the things to think about. Go ahead, Michael. What are you going
Yeah,
to
I
say?
just would add too about the inspection. I think that the language that you guys use when you're submitting offers is it's subject to an inspection.
Yeah.
So your offer is $800,000, you're getting 80% financing, subject to an inspection. So, and if the inspection, like Victoria said, if the inspection reveals something that nobody has expected, for example, in a house, you're buying a house and that house reveals that the boiler is going to need to be replaced. Nobody nobody contemplated that in the offer. Well, that needs to be contemplated. That's a big ticket item. And so when the little slide says, negotiating terms, that's what we're talking about. $800,000 is subject to everything being okay. But once it's not, and there's more money that you're now throwing at the deal, that's an offer and acceptance game again. So the seller might say $800,000 done, offer accepted. Now you have an inspection, and the inspection reveals, a new boiler. Well, you're back to your negotiating again, and I think that's what we're talking about,
And
right?
you're negotiating again, though, if you're in a position to negotiate if you were the top offer, but didn't have the best terms and they have 5 other people, they might say, hey, take it or leave it. We're not negotiating with you. You have to either accept it and move forward with fixing the boiler, which I'm going to say, yes, might be a one-time big ticket item, but it doesn't compare to be like, oh, the whole house is infested with termites. You should run in the other direction. Or there's a structural engineering problem in this house. You're going to have to put structural beams in to support it because it's sinking into the Gowanus Canal. I mean, like those are run in the other direction problems. And
Yep.
hopefully we don't find those properties when we're out looking at them. Because it is always very sad and disappointing when there's something so beautiful, but then under the nuts and bolts of it are not, tight.
It's actually sinking into the Guanas Canal. That's not good. Yeah.
Hopefully not. Knock on wood. Nothing that we run across. So those are the terms. So I think that's an important thing to understand. I'll definitely take a boiler over any of these. Like that's fixable. That's within like, okay, this is a solvable thing. Like, is it figure outable? Termites throughout the house. It depends on how much they've eaten, you know.
Right. The boiler's about money, right?
Yeah, my boiler's about
The
money.
seller's going to have to deal with that boiler, right? The seller, cannot just sell a house most of the time pretending the boiler is 25 years of life ahead and it doesn't. So that's just going to have to be negotiated. And the seller may say, screw you, I'm not going to negotiate. Okay. And maybe you have to eat it and maybe you don't, but that's going to have to be negotiated.
Yep, and that's part of the negotiation. That's why you want a team of people to help advise you on how to negotiate, right? I think that's the scariest thing with people that aren't. Like, that's what I do all the time is finding the sweet spot, going back and forth and being like, okay, I'm going to try to get you the best price, the best terms, and the best deal and not have you overpay, right?
Yep.
And that's at the end of the day. But also, some people it depending on if you were in the Williamsburg in 2000s, you just wanted to win because there were so many people buying things that you just felt like you couldn't. And I feel like that happened during COVID too. And I was so thankful that you want to have a broker and a team that has industry relationships. If I put an offer in to I'm gonna name a bunch of other huge real estate brokers right now that work on huge big teams, but they do a lot of like new construction, like Lindsay Barrett, Deborah Reed. Or like I have 20-year relationships with those people. When I put in an offer, they're like, "Hey Vic, let's do this deal. I know you. I know you're gonna work for your clients. You know you're gonna do with this because they've done so many deals with me." Right. So you want to pick people that have that kind of rapport with the industry, right? Like Michael and June have been doing deals for 20 years together. They have industry credit with their colleagues. And I think that's an important part when you're talking to people is feeling like how long have they been doing this? Do they have the relationships, especially in the neighborhoods? Like people in Brooklyn know me. If you want to buy something in Manhattan and I can help you buy something in Manhattan. But if you really need that leverage to make sure you get the deal, I'm Brooklyn, I'm your girl.
Yep.
So, and same thing with these guys. It's always great when I send out a deal sheet and they're like, I send it to Rashida and they're like, oh, and Michael are like, oh, Rashida, Michael, oh, it's so great. We just did a deal together last week. They all know each other. You want lawyers? I have a list of lawyers and they all know each other because they've all done deals together. And then they just pick one other and it's not you. I'm going to tell you something that, like I said about Rocket Mortgage, do not hire your uncle that does divorces. Do not hire your aunt that, negotiates criminal law. You need to hire a New York City real estate attorney that every day they're negotiating contracts and that is all they do. And you want somebody that's in the loop because you get somebody. I just had a lawyer that really almost killed my deal. And thank God for this other lawyer. Sorry, it wasn't you, Michael.
Uh,
But she was so good and took it in stride that this guy was being a jerk just to be a jerk. And if she took it personally, they could have I'm glad he's not representing my clients. But he really can be deal killers. Time is deal killers and egos. Those are
Mhm.
the things I think that really kill deals. And so you don't want a lawyer that's going to be there and they're going to try to renegotiate. That's not their job. That's my job. So they're there to make sure to help you understand the risk and make sure and outline the contract terms to you and make sure that you feel comfortable taking whatever risks are in that contract. And of course, putting in terms to protect you that they are used to making sure are there for their clients. And then if their other lawyer doesn't want to do that, they have to tell you, okay, I want to do this in here, and they don't want this in here. This what is how you'll be exposed in the future. And that's their job. So pick people you like and trust, but also have a reputation in this industry. Don't,
thank
like I said, don't pick those other people. So June, um, at this point, we've made an offer. We've negotiated the terms. The deal sheets have gone out, and we're doing the inspection. Tell me what's happening on your end.
Well, at this point, I am asking you the name of the building if we are doing a building. Actually, I do that up front while you're making the offer, just to make sure that there's nothing from a financing point of view that could hinder us from getting building approval. We also have a list of buildings that are already approved. So that's a very big component of what we do. And then after that has happened, the trigger point for me is the signed contract of sale and the 10% down, because that is as Michael has said, that is the definition of a real deal. And generally speaking, once that happens, there are terms within the contract that we must adhere to. Most contracts have in the contract, Michael, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but somewhere between 4 to 5 days from the time that the signed contract and is given, and that's defined in the contract about how they determine what that date is. You have 4 to 5 days to actually submit your loan to a lender. If you don't meet that criteria, then you could have your down payment in jeopardy. The other crucial thing to know is your mortgage contingency term. How long do you have to obtain financing, especially in a co-op? Because once you get the approval from us, we then have to meet the board's deadline as well in terms of obtaining information so that you can meet the schedule for when the board meets. So all of the timing things have to play out. The building is on this side, the timing is on the other, and somewhere in the middle, they all meet so that you can close. So at this point, we're doing all of that. We are actively looking for the best interest rate and term for you for your loan based on your closing date. Um, because when you lock in a rate, there's a finite amount of time in which you have to close so that you can secure that rate. So all of these things are locked down generally, or you could choose not to lock in your rate, but it's definitely a conversation that we have so that the process goes off and starts moving in the right direction as quickly and as smoothly as possible.
But June, if we're still at like the offer and negotiating terms stage, right? We're looking at this slide. Are you give these guys
I
some?
said I thought we had moved past that.
Oh,
No,
I asked what we do when the deal sheets go out. What is June?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Deal sheets
My
go
my
out, right?
apologies. My
It's
apologies.
No,
okay.
but you answered the first part and then you just
Yeah, you
kept on
did.
going.
Deal sheets
Yeah,
go
so the
out.
deal when the deal sheets go out,
You're looking
uh,
at buildings, right? You're
yeah,
looking. Tell us
I'm
why
looking
a
at the
building
building. I'm
wouldn't
looking at the
pass.
building to determine whether or not there's a challenge in the building that we need to know about, to determine what the who the managing agent is and what kind of information that we might need. I'm also making sure that all of the documentation that I have that you've previously provided is up to date, because I don't know how long you've been looking for a place. It may have been a month or two before between the time that we did the pre-approval and the time that you've actually signed a contract. So your documentation may need to be updated. All of those things are part of what we are doing to ensure that once you do get the contract of sale signed, that we're ready to go.
Yeah.
Cool.
And I think Michael, like the things that I think, June says it simpler, but it's more simple, but that like what a red flag is for a building for financing is too many renters in the building, right? There are several things that the bank is looking at to say, oh, we will loan in this building. And the red flags they look at are find bad financials, that another bank has flagged it. There's a litigation, things like that that might come up that's in the bank system already. And so they know, oh, there's more than 50% renters in here. Oh, we're not going to loan in this building. And you want to know that as soon as possible. So that's why we have June look at the addresses on their database to see if that there's already any automatic red flags that come up.
So
Yes, and
guys, so guys, just if you're about to make an offer on a building, this is where you need to email June and say, I'm going to make an offer on this address. Is this co-op cool? And like, let
yes,
her do that. That's a
it's so
big note for
easy.
you guys. Yep.
It's easy to do that. And one thing else, Vic, that I want to mention is that there are other places, that one lender may not like it because there's over 50%, and another lender may not worry about that. So that's why you leave that up for me, to help you with determining, that process.
Cool.
And some lenders are really big about litigation. And I'm saying this now, but a U.S. bank is really big about litigation. They just don't like it. But if you know anything about New York, if somebody walks into a co-op building and they slip and they say, "Oh, my back," it's a litigation. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with the building, but that's what happens when you have a bank that's not used to doing business in New York. So all of these things are, things to consider.
Yep.
We're more litigious than other cities, apparently.
We slip more. I think we slip on the floor more than any other state.
Yes.
I'll have to look up those statistics. So, and what also is happening when the deal sheets go out, Michael is doing some due diligence for you, right? We're going to look at the board minutes. What else, Michael, are
Yes.
you looking at? Tell me.
Yes. So, okay, so let's move the slide. Can we move the slide?
Yeah, go, Danny. Next slide.
Oh, Danny.
Now is getting into contract.
All right, cool. So this part of the so you've made your offer, you have the terms have been accepted. You're now a term sheet has gone out with all the information. Seller's attorney prepares the contract. And this is always a bit a strange component of New York real estate because not many states have this, these co-ops and condos. These are very different animals. Co-ops are shares of stock. Condos are real property like a house. But these buildings, small and large, have complicated financials. And you have to be very careful into the kind of building that you're buying into. If it's a house, you know what you're buying. You have an inspection, and an inspection tells you kind of where you're at with this property. But with a condo or a co-op, you're buying into something far more complicated and messy and fabulous, and also, terrifying because these financials can be extremely daunting and complicated, and real estate lawyers are very good at breaking down where the red flags are, whether your maintenance or common charges will go up dramatically, and you just want to understand what kind of building you're buying into. I mean, when you move in, you need to know in the next 6 months or a year or 2 years that relatively you have an understanding of the financials. If the common charges or the maintenance for this your unit get, double and you're caught off guard, that's you're in a really tough spot. And so a real estate lawyer's job is to dig into the financials of the building and being able to explain it to you, so that you have expectations. So what are the very quickly, because this is pretty dense, but like what are the material that we feast on in this due diligence period? One is we look at the building financials, like that are prepared by the building's accountants, right? Two, we look at the board minutes. Every month these boards meet, they take notes. All this stuff can be very revealing. Three, co-op boards more and more are like communicating with their shareholders and their owners. They're sending emails, they're sending memos. I love to look at all that stuff because the boards are telling the owners what's happening in the building. This great information. And finally, co-op lawyers representing buyers like you guys, we send questionnaires. We send 30 something. My questionnaire probably has 50 questions. I'm so ashamed of my questionnaire because it's so extensive. But tons of questions that the managing agent answers in writing that gives us an idea of the maintenance, of the any assessments. Assessments are temporary revenue, temporary ways to get revenue for the building. Any litigations, any problems, any major capital improvements that the building's embarking on. So by the end of this week or 2 week period, we're any red flags we're gonna spot, and if you can get through that period where I say to you, okay, here's where the building's at. I don't see any red flags. I think maintenance is going to go up 5 to 10% next year. then it's your call. Do you want to go forward or not? Because remember, you haven't signed this contract yet. This is all pre-contract, assuming that there's no red flags, assuming that you have a handle on the finances, then it's time to sign the contract. Put your 10% deposit down.
Time to sign on the dotted line, as they
And to
say.
buck up. It's time to buck up.
Probably being doing that through like e-signature of some sort. You used to have to go to your lawyer's office and they'd review all the contract terms with you that were finalized, and then you would sign and you would bring a check. And that COVID changed all of that. And now they're going to get on a phone call with you or a Zoom. They're going to walk you through it, and then they're going to send you Doc Hub or DocSign something, and then you will go online and wire things. Everything's, used to be a lot more in person. My job's thankfully is still in. I get to see people
I
still.
miss that. I like that stuff. I miss that. But you're right. It's mostly DocuSign and Zoom.
Sorry. And then you're in contract. And then so much happens. But the what June just said was you have 5 days to get your financing application in. So whoever you have decided to move forward with, hopefully June, you're going to make sure you get your application for a mortgage into them. And you need to do that within 5 days of signing your contract.
All right, Danny, next slide.
We're in the contract. Okay. So then and then the most important thing after getting your thing is to get them all of the paperwork, because it is so important to make sure we get your commitment letter, because we cannot do submit your board package for a co-op until we get your commitment letter. So your first priority, because everybody's like, oh, I want to work on my co-op board package. No, whatever June needs, you get to June. You have to get all your financials together. Then we can worry about anything else. But that is the most important thing. And then, Michael's now doing a whole other round of due diligence along with the underwriting that's happening with June. I'll let you guys talk about that.
All right, June, why don't you do this next stage
Okay.
for you, and then
So,
I'll.
I mean, some of it I did already in advance, but
That's okay.
but in most cases, I prefer to have the updated documents while you're negotiating the contract, not afterwards.
Right.
So that by the time the contract is signed and ready to go, I have everything. It's just a matter of you providing me with the signed contract of sale.
In an
That
ideal world, that was how it would work, right, June?
yes,
But,
yes.
people don't do their homework.
Ideally,
Yeah.
ideally, that's the way that it would work. But if it's not in an ideal world, certainly by the time you have the contract of sale signed, you would need to make sure that I have everything that I've told you I need in place. And simultaneously, we will be working with the managing agent of the building to ensure that any updates to their finances we obtain on your behalf. And also, we will be working towards getting the appraisal done of the property. The appraisal is a document that tells the lender, they hire someone, an appraiser, to go and tell them, yes, if you're buying it for $800,000, that the property is worth $800,000. And so obviously that's a very important piece of the puzzle. And that has to be coordinated between Victoria and the listing broker to make sure that you can gain access to the property. So all of that happens after the contract of sale has been signed. All of these things are put into motion simultaneously. So that I think is the other part of the puzzle that I didn't say previously.
Cool. And remember, you guys got, there's like it's like a three-headed dragon, right? After when we signed the contract. I just thought of that. So you've got like Victoria handling the board package, right? Handling the waiver of right of first refusal package to the condo. These are like packages, certainly for a co-op. The board approval process is, very extensive, and Victoria takes control of that, right? And then June, she takes control of like you getting a loan commitment. You have 30 days to get a loan commitment. You are working. Both of them are happening simultaneously. And then the third dragon head is me, and that is your lawyer, who is going to be ordering a title report or a lien search and researching the property and researching the seller so that when it's time to close, we know that there are no issues. Any issues have been vetted. All mortgages have paid off. at the closing. All liens are addressed, all violations are addressed, all parking tickets are addressed, any DOB problems are addressed. That process, if there's a house, it's a survey that's going to be conducted. So there's like research on the property, research on the seller that could be, 100-page reports that we need to start getting going. Those three things happen as soon as you sign a contract. Those three things happen. They all have their different timing. They all have their different challenges. But like now that you're in contract, those are the three things that start get going.
And then we're working on your board package. And I'm not going to go into detail, but we cannot submit it to the board until we have your commitment letter from the bank. So that's why it's important that the bank has everything as soon as possible, right?
Yep.
That's you, and that's really on you. Michael doesn't really mostly, he needs stuff from the building. June needs things from you. So there's a different level of where you're getting the information from as well and what you're responsible for. But we're your little coaches. Like our job is to make sure you get the paperwork in, you get the things filled out, and you're doing it correctly. And when you work with us, we have everything. I put everything in a project management tool so that every step of the way throughout the process, you're getting resources and understanding where we are. So you want to know about what's going to happen at the inspection, even though you haven't even started looking at property. I have a whole piece on that, and you can understand what it's going to be like so that you're prepared. And I think that makes people really feel confident and knowledgeable, and not that they're just like blindly trusting people. But I have great reviews on Google, so you can blindly trust me. And Park Slope parents, which I think there's a couple people here from tonight. So, but our job is really to make New York City real estate is very stressful. It doesn't have to be if you pick the right people. Real estate has a bad rap because of bad people. Not every experience is like that, but somebody with some crazy story, but it's because they probably found that guy on Craigslist and not, through a vetted or let Zillow pick them. Like, you have to vet people to make sure they're real, they're legit. So, and that's the people that are on this call. We've known each other long enough to vouch for each other in that way. So we get your board package in, we do the interview. They love you because I have prepped you to make sure charm their butts off, but not say too much, and win their hearts over. They sign in 24 hours, say you're getting approval. Then we tell the bank, the board said yes, they're sent over the letter. Here it is. Once they have the actual piece of paper saying the board give you approval, then they can start the clear to close process. And that's when, once we have the clear to close from the bank, everybody will orchestrate a beautiful closing experience, and you will get the keys and you will schedule the move not on the day of your closing, because that only adds to the stress. And we're trying to make this less stressful, not more. Anything I want people to have to wrap it up. I want people that are jumping off. So I'd rather open up for questions,
Cool.
uh, because you're getting your keys, you're signing the rest of your money away. That's the end of the line.
Closing the deal. That's it.
Yeah, you did it. You made it here. This is where you want to end up. Peter, you've been engaged the whole time. I see a couple other people's cameras still on. Do you guys have any questions that we can answer for you? Any feedback? Did you learn something tonight, I hope? You were very talkative.
Great.
I'm just going to look in the chat and see if there's any questions here. You guys can take yourself off mute, or jump on in if you want. But we're going to send a bunch of resources. Like I said, we have we're going to have a video of this and an audio, and we're going to send you our ebook and our contact information, and a link to schedule a call. I have a Calendly. You can just book a time to jump on a call with me if you want to ask me questions about next steps. And I think do I have anything else to say besides I really appreciate everybody, and I like working so much with both of you guys, and I'm glad you
Same
guys came
here. Same
tonight. Yeah.
here. Yeah, and
Likewise.
if anybody has any specific questions, maybe something confusing from a legal standpoint about a condo or a co-op or anything, just email me. I'm very available and happy to coach you through. And even if you're not ready to buy and you just want to
Yeah.
get a little bit more understanding of a strange part of your financial life then I'm happy to speak with you. So Just
Yeah.
good luck with everybody. Good luck
Same.
to
If you're not ready, just give us a call. You don't have to have it all figured out or have all the pieces in place. Like it might be an aspiration for a year. Jesse, I saw you take yourself off mute. Did you want to jump in with a question?
Yeah, I had a question. So I've heard a bit about like I guess specifically with co-ops, like post-closing liquidity, like how much kind of money they want you to have in the bank after the transaction's done. I feel like I've heard a few different things about how much that
Because it's
is.
different per building.
Yeah, so I guess I wanted to know like what's a good rule of thumb to I've heard it's like a year to two kind of thing, but I just wanted to hear from people who obviously do this all the time, like what to expect there.
I would say there's also it's like the other range that people use, so a year to 2 years of money in the bank, but other people want debt to income ratio. They don't want it to be between 25 and 30% too. So it and you have to just clarify some of them were like a year or two of just the mortgage payment or just the maintenance. And they're every it's
Gotcha.
you're gonna ask your broker, hey, can you find out before we go fall in love with this place, like what the terms are? Because if we aren't gonna pass the snuff, then let's not even go look at it. And so, if you have something where it's tight, let's ask ahead of time. They should be able to answer that question. Like, what is the post-possession closing liquidity and what's the debt to income ratio that this building requires? What's their sublet policy? We can ask tons of questions ahead of time to make sure, like, hey, it might say pets on approval. What does that mean? I have a raccoon. No, raccoons are illegal in New York, but like whatever the thing is, like we want to know ahead of time because it's the worst when, oh, they didn't disclose this information, you fall in love and you're heartbroken because you're not gonna be able to move forward.
Cool.
And
So
the only other thing I would add is that don't count your own self out, please.
yeah,
You
don't
know,
count your own self out.
our
I agree with
our
that.
information is here. Call us and speak to us. Let us help you decide what's possible because we've been doing this for a very long time. So yeah, just rely on what we say.
Cool. Appreciate it.
Yeah, so we can talk about that, Jesse, if you want to like walk through your numbers. I mean, it would help if that would help you.
Yeah, I can certainly send a follow-up email. So
Well, yeah, because I think that, yeah, June's right. Like people all the time like take themselves out of the race. They're like, oh, I could never buy. Oh, I could never, oh, that's out of my option. You might not. Somebody was like, well, where can I get something for $400,000? I'm like, in Ditmas, like I will show you what you can get. And people are really surprised. Like, there's nice pieces of property. It might not be in this dead center of Williamsburg, but like if you're going to buy something and own your own place and like have stability and have to travel a little bit more further to do things like, for me, that like Red Hook is like that. Is like, there's lots of when I didn't want to buy the house I'm in. I had my own real estate broker, which is Tina, that works in my office, because you need coaching. I wanted to buy this co-op and I was going to get two roommates to afford the maintenance plus the mortgage. I had this harebrained idea and she came and talked to my parents and talked to me and was like, no, 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 Vic, you can't, what are you doing to yourself? And I was like, well, I can do it because I'm going to get all these roommates and they'll help me support the rent and blah, 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 the mortgage and everything. And I had this harebrained idea, but thankfully that's why you have professionals help you. Because even when you're an expert, it's an emotional process. You get in your own way. You start, uh, getting in your head and just, you need your coach. You need someone to talk you through with it and be like, okay, this is, yes, okay. Ground me back in reality. So we can be that for you. I'm happy to talk to you about anything. And I love doing this and meeting people and getting to spend time and getting to know them intimately through, one of the biggest decisions you guys will make. It's a lot. So you want to have the people that around you that can guide you through it in a way that feels supportive. So. Okay, guys, talked enough. I'm very chatty tonight. So I will let you all go and we'll follow up with an email. And I want to thank you, June and Michael, as always. It's always a pleasure. Like kicking off January in 2026 with you. Hopefully it's going to be a good year.
I hope so.
I
Yes.
hope so too. So, okay, thanks everybody. If there's
All right,
anything
I wish
else,
everybody
follow
great
up.
luck. Nice
Thank
to
you.